Hola, and welcome everyone to my Mayhem Streamcast. Here we're conversations to break stigmas, create awareness, encourage acceptance and opportunities. I love to share stories about mental health, disability, and trauma just to create that awareness and really have some conversations where we all learn and take away from. So we're here to kick off another week, and I hope everyone had a great weekend, is feeling refreshed. It's Monday. I'm your host, DJ, visual descriptor. I'm a female Latina brunette with silver streaks, olive skin, brown eyes. I'm wearing some pink lipstick today, and I've got a green shirt on, positive affirmations background with my neon lips and a fox on the wall. So welcome. And if you don't know me, well, there's a little introduction. Please follow, subscribe, support my channels, my work. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitch, YouTube. Please, I'm always looking for new subscribers on YouTube, Instagram, on Facebook, and I really appreciate the support. And if anyone's interested in live streaming, let me know. Production, accessibility, speaker, I'm available. I would love to help anyone that really needs some assistance. So let me know. I want to thank Restream for powering our show tonight. Every week we're here, and it really means a lot, and I really love the platform. So if you're interested in streaming, use Restream. Highly recommend it. All right, so today we have an amazing guest, and it's a important topic. I know we're gonna I've been participating in the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society Man and Woman of the Year philanthropic competition, and tonight's guest is going to be sharing his story related to blood cancer, multiple myeloma. And it's really important that we talk about this and bring awareness and hear his story and his experiences. And I'm really excited to tell you all about Gregory. Let's see. Oh my goodness, Gregory, I'm so excited to have you here. He's an entrepreneur, he's a leader, he's a podcaster, and he's here to share his stories, all his business ventures, and what he's been up to. And he is finally gonna, he's gonna give us an exclusive. I'm so excited. I get an exclusive. Woo, woo, woo. All right. Let's bring out our wonderful guest, Gregory.
Hi, DJ. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for being here, Gregory, to share your story and your podcast and all your work.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Certainly you let the cat out the bag, and I'll just chime in just a little bit. This is the first exclusive interview that I've had post my stem cell transplant. I did a lot of interviews prior to the stem cell transplant based on, my composition of where, how I felt, what was going on, my state of mind, because it was a very fearful circumstance and situation. But you get firsthand conversation of really talking to me after, like after all the mayhem has happened, we're on the Silver Fox Talk. Let's talk about the mayhem.
You. I'm so excited, right? And this is important because we all have our mayhem. We're all going through something, whether we share it in public or not. Mm-hmm. Usually it's there in private, right? And so your story is very much yours, and I'm excited to hear about what you've been through. Really, let's talk about the good stuff, like before the diagnosis and all that. But tell me a little bit about your background and really what you've been doing. I was reading in there, organizational leader with crisis and disruption in organizations, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. Coming from crisis, quote unquote, in mental health, disability type of, I was really drawn to that, the power of those words. And so what were you doing before the diagnosis? And you're also a veteran. So thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. You're also a veteran too. So thank you for your service.
Yes.
So yeah, let me just kind of chime in a little bit and answer your first question. You had a bunch of questions kind of tied in there, but certainly, yes, being a veteran, I served in the Navy for 8 years. Hoorah, Navy. But after the Navy, I went into the semiconductor industry for about 14 years, where I hold about 25 patents in the semiconductor industry. I left the semiconductor industry and basically started my first business venture called Prolific Technology, which was a management consultancy firm. I ran that business for about 12 years, where a lot of experience that I had was based on the Department of Energy, environmental remediation, reclamation, cleanup type work. pretty much not only here domestically, but abroad. I worked at, a lot of the nuclear facilities kind of here in the U.S. and, a lot of nuclear facilities abroad. Probably around 2012, I had my first, I won't say my first, but, my father passed away, and things kind of got a little bit traumatic, not only with the business, but really trying to deal with, his death at that point in time. And what I ended up doing is I left the country. I moved to Peru. A lot of people are like, hey, what was all that about? But I went to Peru for about 3.5 years. I worked down there as a project controls manager on a mining project. End up moving back to the U.S. Spent a lot of time in the oil and gas industry. And to answer your question, I consider myself to be above and beyond, a typical project manager, project controls person, entrepreneur, because I really look at things, I'm going to call it with a candid eye, being that I see things actually before they kind of happen, particularly on projects, because a lot of cases I've been involved with through the projects that I've worked on worldwide, it's always been a rescue 911. We need someone to come in and really help us like right now. And when you're upside down on a project or you're behind in your business, you spent a lot of money, you're burning a lot of dollars, you really want to get out of that situation as quickly as possible. That's what they call guys like me. Like I said, more than just being a project controls manager, project manager, really kind of a transformational specialist, taking the chaos and turning that into something that's a little bit more meaningful. So I'll stop there.
I love it. Well, that's wonderful. No, that's great. That's a good background. Really is going to, I know, propel the story forward. So you did a lot of work, it seems to be dangerous.
I spent a lot of time behind a computer, so if that's dangerous, then regardless of the physical location, it's a lot of time behind computers.
Okay, well, regardless, it sounds pretty intense and like some very serious business. So, woo! But now you started working on a podcast. So how did you go from there into podcasting?
Well, it's a very interesting dynamic because, my transition from, project controls, project management work into, I've got 3 companies now. So I've got, not only a management consultancy firm, but also have a mobile app company and podcasting. So the dynamic with podcasting was kind of facilitated by my wife. And I know if she's on this listening, she's going to be like, oh my God, don't tell the full story. But anyway, I had just come off of a job, kind of a proposal job that we were preparing, some documents for a company that was going off for a bid. And what ended up happening is COVID had hit within a couple weeks after I arrived back home, and my wife had arrived back home from Peru. And she was looking at me laying on the couch and she said, hey, you've been always talking about doing this podcasting thing. So why don't you start doing some work, to figure out what you want to do? And so the month of February came, and I basically started doing a bunch of research. I started looking at content and resources and other various podcasters just like yourself, trying to figure out, well, what would I do if I did a podcast? And by, I want to say about mid-March, April timeframe, I kind of coerced one of my friends into doing 3 episodes with me right out of the gate. And so
that's the way to do it. That's the way. You got to get a friend, grab a friend, get to it.
So that was a trial run. And, to say the least, it went off without a hitch. And of course, we're going to talk about the podcast a little bit more, so I won't spill the beans on that right now. But, cut to the chase is exactly what it is. I mean, let's take away all the pretenses. Let's put you into your natural aspect of who you are, and let's dive in and be real about it. And, I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on.
Ooh, yeah, because I was going to ask you, we need to, I'm sure inquiring minds want to know about the name behind the podcast, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, well, okay, let's say hi to the chat. I'm pulling up comments, but I don't want to distract from what you're saying. So let's just give some shout outs. So Tim, you get the first shout out. Thank you for hanging out. Shout out to Gregory's wife. Yes.
Yeah, her name is Monica. So definitely she's participating in all of this.
I'm sure she's doing a lot of the work and she's really holding it down. So taking care of business. It's huge. She's caregiving. I mean, part of it, if her role really isn't a lot, and we cannot forget those loved ones that are in it with you, right? That are there beside you. So props to Monica. I love it. Welcome. And lucky. Okay, thank you. Okay, Saturday night. What's up, Mackenzie? Spend a lot of time behind the computer. That's so silly. Saltine's here. I bet Gregory could write a book. Ooh, I wonder.
I'll tell you what, there's so many people asking me to write a book, particularly when they hear my cancer story, along with all of my experience. Another exclusive is that's in the works as well.
Oh,
And I won't give any more information to that, but you're hearing it first.
yeah, all right, good, Salty. You're good. You're good, Salty. That's the way we do it. Well, this is great. Look, and I'm loving the comments. A proper fix up, clean up, all the mess manager. Wow. That sounds about right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, get up and out ASAP. Let's see what's going on. Everybody else here, let's see. They're having a conversation. How did you adjust to high altitude? I don't know what's going on. All right. Lynn's here. Lynn's checking in from Facebook. Hi, Lynn. I'm not familiar with you, but I'm good to see you. We always love new listeners and new audience. Okay, Salty said Navy. I was Air Force, so we got to give it up to Air Force. Okay, I know everyone's having a side chat, so I'm not going to get too in there. Oh, hey, Veg Rocker.
So I'll answer that one question. Adjustment to high altitude was rough. I did work at a couple different mining sites, particularly one that was at about 16,000 feet above sea level. So every time I went up there, it was a huge adjustment and extremely difficult the very first day. I was inhaling more oxygen than I was actually taking in. So working at altitude is a challenge for sure.
You nuclear facilities. To me that sounds dangerous. That sounds intimidating. So and I'm military too. So working on a military base, they have different operations going on, different types of things going on, and they're obviously military important. So I don't know who you are, LinkedIn user. You're going to have to drop your name in the comments so we can give you a proper hello and a proper shout out.
Well, there's only one lady I know that calls me Superman, and that's my sister, Jacqueline Smith. So certainly that could be her.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to assume that's your sister. Hi.
Play sister, not real sister, play sister. I mean, but
play sister. Okay.
She's a philanthropist and basically spends a lot of time helping vets out here in the San Antonio area. She runs a nonprofit and just does stellar work really to give back to the community. So that's the only person I know that calls me Superman, and that's probably the person that is commenting. Call Gregory Superman.
Oh, Monica. I mean, Monica's your wife. What's her name? I'm sorry.
Monica. That's her sister Maluska that I see there in the chat. Yeah.
Okay. I would love to know the Superman. Why you named Superman? I'm just curious. Jacqueline Smith. Yeah. So give a little scoop on why you call him Superman. I would love to hear. And Jenny's here. Want to say to Jenny. Jenny introduced us, and she said you would be a great guest to have and talk about your show. So thank you, Jenny, for introducing Gregory and I. All right, Gregory. So let's keep it moving. Do tell a little bit more about, I don't know. Do you want to talk about the businesses? Do you want to start getting into the podcast? Do you want to start moving into
we can kind of transition, from the businesses into, the diagnosis, because, what a lot of people don't know, and I haven't really shared this a lot, but in the context of, let's just say, taking everyone back to May, June timeframe of last year, my podcast was really, taking off. Should I say my mobile app company was taking off. My management consultancy firm was a little bit slow, but in the context of what was really happening at that point in time is that there was so much inertia, so much momentum behind us that, it was like we're sitting on the edge of the cliff, like getting ready to jump off a parachute. And I'll give you some examples. So the mobile app company is called TrueSpot, and TrueSpot is based on what we consider to be the augmented fan experience. If you think about what metaverse is all about, I consider that metaverse stole their idea from what we're trying to do, because TrueSpot has been innovative and pioneering the overall augmented fan experience for over 3 years. I mean, we've been developing this application and working through the details of how you can go to concerts, basically movies, graduations, any type of live event from the comfort of your home and from the security of your mobile app phone. basically experiencing it as you would experience it as an avatar through a metaverse type of experience, just to kind of give you an idea. And so, my business partner and I, we worked on that. And a matter of fact, the amount of interest that we were getting, with TrueSpot is like I got Joe Montana on speed dial on my cell phone. If that's not impressive, I mean, it's kind of like really chaotic.
Wow.
It's really
Legend.
chaotic.
Legend. Okay.
And
I did check out, and I shared the website. I'm gonna pull it up, see if I can pull it in the chat, or Mod, if you can get it, please, and pop it in the chat for me. I would appreciate it. But I did put it out there, and I did check it out, and it seemed like super simulated, and I loved it.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept, and just to kind of wrap up that particular part of the conversation.
Yeah,
we were right on the cusp of a capital raise, just as everything started to happen with my diagnosis, and we had to literally stop because I was just in a horrific position at the point in time, and so we ended up stopping there. Now, at the same time that TrueSpot has got all this momentum going on, cut to the chase is getting wrapped up. I'm talking about, like, think about the aspects of having a podcast that's based on friends, family, and professional colleagues talking about things that impact your ability to thrive. Not only talking about things that impact your ability to thrive, but you really focus in on the sincerity of trying to nurture people's soul. You bring forth stories that are unwritten, untold, unscripted, that no one else really wants to talk about. I remember having people come to me that were like authors and public speakers and other various things, and they would be like, Greg, I want to be in your program. I'm like, okay, that's great, but I'm not going to talk about your book. I'm not going to talk about your public speaking. I'm not going to sell your products or services. I want to know authentically, who are you? And so I would come to every pre-discovery meeting with a list of topics, and I would be like, I've done my research, I've done my homework, which topic do you want to talk about? And people would go like, oh my God. And I said, if you're going to be on my program, you're going to be vulnerable, because that's what Cut to the Chase is all about. You don't know which way I'm going to go. It's going to be an open Pandora's box. And basically, if you're not prepared for that, it was like game off. And so what ended up happening is we were able to entice so many women to come onto our program. Matter of fact, the listenership of our program is probably about 60 or 70% women, and the rest is, males. But I could never really get any male guests on the show because they were all like, Greg, there's no way. We would have topics like the infertility doula. We would have topics like, are you happy? It was just all different types of things that would be kind of cutting edge, out of the box type thinking. Life is like underwear, change is good. Come on.
Oh goodness.
Having things that really drive your mental thinking and give you the ability to say, I can relate to those type of topics because they're at the middle of the road for where people are. It's not talking in the illustrious category of being rich and wealthy and famous. It's just like bringing that authenticity right down the middle of the fairway. And that's what Cut to the Chase is all about. And to be honest with you, I love it. I have so much of a passion for podcasting. I just can't wait to get back. And I'll tell you another exclusive. Here we go. Another exclusive.
I love it. It's dropping.
We're going to start recording again as far as season 6. May 1st. Boom. Get ready, people.
Ooh, already season 6?
Yeah.
Season 6. Okay, can I ask you, how do you do your seasons?
Well, we usually record about 25 episodes per season. And right now we got 145 published. So if you go out to our website, there's 145 episodes out there. There's a lot of different variations of stories. It's pretty neat. Pretty neat stuff.
So the www.k2tcpodcast.com.
Yep.
That's for cut with a K. Number 2, letter T, and C for Chase.
That's right.
All right.
So you were asking me earlier, let's talk about the fun aspect. You were asking me earlier about, hey, how did this name evolve, right? So before we venture off into some other things, I'll explain to you how the name evolved. So my wife and I were sitting around chit-chatting and, starting to just kind of throw stickies on the wall, and basically I said, if we're going to do something, it really has to kind of stand out. And I started coming up with all these crazy names, and she was like, nope, I don't like that. I don't like this. I don't like that one. And then when I came up with cut to the chase, except for, the uniqueness of how it's spelt, she was like, oh my God, that is brilliant. But the irony of it, since it was such a brilliant idea and people looked at it as slang, it really threw people off because they were like, well, why did you spell your podcast like that? Why didn't you spell it in the proper, phonic, alphabet, the proper naming? And I was like, do you want to stand out or do you want to fit in? Because the thing is now is with cut to the chase with the THA, we own the rights to that. We own, the trademarks. I mean, it's like, it's ours and no one else owns it. I mean, I had to fight, the public office, excuse me, the patent office in order to be able to get the trademark, but it was well worth the battle, to be able to own the rights to the name. And I love the fact that now people come to us because it's so catchy, cut to the chase, that they're like, I'm intrigued by the name, so let me just figure out what that is, and
you got that shirt.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. We got to sport that. We're on your program. We're on this Silver Fox Talks. We got to have it.
Yeah, no. You got merch. You got merch somewhere?
Oh, yeah. We got merch. We got hats. I mean, a lot of stuff's out on our website. Even with the diagnosis of cancer, we ran a campaign, so there's kind of all kinds of merch out there, which we'll talk about a little bit later on.
Yeah, and so your podcast you're out there. Like when I went to your website, you're on Anchor. I put it on here: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, Castro, Overcast, SoundCloud, Podchaser, iHeartRadio, and a few others that I'm not even that familiar with. But I tried to put the main ones that I was like, okay. Because as a live streamer, I think of YouTube. And are you working on your YouTube? I was looking at your YouTube. Do you do video podcasting? Are you heading?
Yeah, we're heading in that direction. My wife, God bless her soul, she's the back office behind a lot of this. I mean, she's come up with the colors, the schemes, kind of all of the artistry. And I'd like to just say, this is coming from an individual that didn't have any formal training. So everybody sees a lot of our marquee that's out there right now, and they're like, oh my God, this is wonderful, this is great. But that's all based on my wife. I mean, she's the brainchild behind all of that. And very, very proud of her stepping up behind the plate, even though she didn't want to do it, and kind of facilitating a lot of that work behind the scenes for us.
Wow. Well, I'm loving it. She's doing a great job for being not having that professional training or having that, work history to kind of learn the skill sets. Hey, amazing work.
Right.
And so, I mean, I was listening a little bit here and there, and I'm like, you got some really good intense episodes. They are not for the faint of heart. Like, they're really hardcore, deep.
Yes.
Like full of depth stories, like crying moments, laughing moments.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you catch it all.
Yeah.
So I love stuff like that, right? Like for me, that's important, those stories. And that's why I love my show, right? And your story really captures that essence of how important, what that you're going through. So you said something about your show was so, okay, I tried to write it down, but you said that your podcast was really about these stories and you didn't want people to come and like fluff it, but you really want to come in and be vulnerable. And then the diagnosis, and that's where we were going to enter, that you get your own diagnosis.
Right. Well, at the time that for me, my diagnosis, it was in the beginning, it to me, it was like an out of mind, out of body experience. And I'm going to try to explain this as best as possible. So in June, I'm probably recording. At one point, we were recording because we wanted to have so many episodes out there. We wanted to have, a lot of content. We recorded, like, I had even contacted Guinness Book of World Records. We recorded 25 episodes in 1 week. And they were like, oh my God, this guy's like nuts. I'm talking about like all over the world. So we started like in Russia. We left Russia. We came back to the UK. We left the UK. We came to California, left California. We ended up in Texas. We left Texas. And we went to Tulum, Mexico. And that was like in a 1-day recording, kind of session in the studio. And people were like, how many episodes are you guys trying to do? And I was like, well, I'd like to be able to see if I could break the Guinness Book of World Records, but they didn't want to give me any type of category. And we just finally gave up. We just said, forget it. But anyway, all these things, like I said, were going on. You got True Spot, you got Cut to the Chase. These things are all happening. The month of May hits. I start having back pains in my lower back on the right-hand side. And I'm going, what's going on? Am I exercising too much? Am I not sleeping well? And it was just got to a point to where it's just like, it started out just like kind of as a nagging pain, and then it just started to persist. And so what I'm about to get into is about to be what I'm considered to be kind of very tumultuous, emotional. I mean, we're going to take you right off the cliff here, right on that roller coaster ride, as I mentioned in one of my comments. And so June rolls around, and this pain is getting more worse. I mean, it's becoming like, oh my God, I'm like, I got to do something. I'm popping, pain pills. Nothing is working, right? So finally, I call up my general physician. My general physician is like, all right, if it continues to get worse, why don't you just come in and see me? Well, the very next morning after I called him and said, hey, I need to come see you, that morning I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't even move. I mean, it was like, okay, I'm paralyzed. And luckily, my phone was next to me on the nightstand. I call my wife. She's in Peru, and I'm telling her I can't move. She's like, what do you mean you can't move? She's like thinking this is a joke, right? And I'm like, I am in so much pain that I'm afraid if I get out of the bed right now that I won't be able to do anything. I think I'm going to have to crawl. And so she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, at some point I've got to try to figure out how to get to the doctor. She's like, well, who do we want to call? What do we want to do? And I was like, I don't know who to call, because I mean, at that point we were still kind of new to the area and trying to figure out, who we could reach out to. And so what I ended up doing, I don't know, by the grace of God, I was able to muster up enough courage. I called my general physician. He said, come on in if you can get here. And basically he checked me out, gave me a bunch of x-rays. He said, look, I'm going to give you a steroid/inflammation shot, and let's see you back on Monday. Well, DJ, I'm going to tell you, that shot did nothing. I mean, it was like my pain was so bad, it did nothing at all. And I said, oh my God, I said, I have got to go see a specialist, like immediately.
Who do you go see at that point? Like, who else can you just chase down for an answer?
Right. So what I ended up doing is obviously, Google's a powerful thing, jumped online, spine management, back specialists, anybody, So I basically did a bunch of quick research, found a guy that was literally right down the street within a couple miles. And I went to him, and he's a spine management specialist named Dr. McKee. And what ended up occurring at that moment in time, he saw me, he's like, man, you look like you're in bad shape. You're like hell has taken over you. And so what I ended up doing is, by the time I got there, he says, well, what's going on? I said, look, I've got this pain. I kind of gave him the indication. I said, it's my upper hip, so forth area on the right-hand side. And he kind of looked at me and said, So he said, come on, let's see if we can get you on the x-ray table. Got me on the x-ray table. And he basically said, you're going to have to get an MRI. And I was like, okay, never had an MRI before. I'm a healthy guy, I've just never had any major type of things occur. And went to the MRI, and they said all these different words, I'm thinking like, what is that? Multiple myeloma, this, that, and the other, so forth, so on. Because I'm like, I never heard of any of this stuff. And what ended up happening is I went back to the doctor, and he said, you know what, in order for us to verify this tumor that we're seeing, which is actually on your sciatic nerve, basically on the upper part of my right hip, we're going to have to do another MRI, and it's going to have to be with contrast. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, what's contrast? Well, we put this in your system, and, it makes you glow, and then so forth and so on. And so we went back 2 days later, we did the MRI contrast, and it was like 1,000% positive. You have multiple myeloma, at least based on what they could see from the tumor and basically everything else. And they said, you need to go see an oncologist. And so this is where the story gets real interesting, right? So my spine management doctor goes to college with an oncologist, which was a really good friend of his. And so my wife and I call him up, and we're like, okay, we're referred from, Dr. McKeever to you, we'd like to be able to get in as soon as possible to see you, because this was obviously pretty bad. And the doctor was like, well, I can't accept your insurance. I can't do this. I can't do that. I mean, it was totally almost like a discrimination. I was so frustrated. I called up my insurance company, and I said, look, can you guys contact this guy and see if I can get in to see him? My insurance company called. They were like, Greg, we don't know what this guy's problem is, but there should be no holdup on your insurance as far as him being able to see you. And so it was just very, very frustrating. my wife basically was back in country at that point in time, and we started calling around to all the oncologists basically throughout here in San Antonio. And on the last call, the very last call, spine management doctor, excuse me, not spine management doctor, a oncologist called JC Rao. She said, "Come on in. I want to see you. We want to get blood work. We want to do this one, so forth and so on, just to verify." So once they ran the blood work, like I said, it was not only did we have conclusions from the spine management doctor, but we also had conclusive evidence from the oncologist. And it was at the point to where they were telling me, this is very bad. You're stage 3. And I'm thinking, like, what is stage 3? What is this? I mean, you're talking like medical terms that are being thrown
Yeah.
at my wife and I. We had no clue. We knew nothing of any of this stuff. And so it's very scary, very frustrating, overwhelming, compelling. Like I said, total out of body experience. And so what we ended up doing is we finally settled on Dr. Rao, and she says, this is so severe that I want to get a biopsy. She had a biopsy completed within like 48 hours, and I was on chemo treatment in less than 48 hours. Knock on wood, this lady saved my life because of her persistence, her professionalism to go outside of the box, not wait on a lot of analytical detail because of what she had in front of her.
Yeah.
She had enough experience to basically say, you know what, we've got to go, because if we don't go right now, this is going to get a lot worse. And I am very thankful for her, and she knows that. I tell her all the time, she's like my angel. I mean, she's a godsend, and I'm just blessed. But between the fact of what transpired just for me to get into her office and to go through, this regiment of the program that she had set out, she said, I want to get you back to where you can function. And I was just looking at her going, well, what does that mean? She goes, well, we need to try and be aggressive on this. She says, I want you in my office on chemo and emotherapy 5 days a week, which meant that I got no rest from treatment except for on the weekends. And there's pictures, like if you look at my blog and if you look at my Facebook page, there's pictures early on back in the July, August timeframe, where you can just see I am just completely distraught. I mean, the medicine and the chemo was just tearing me up. I mean, it was just basically, demoralizing me. I mean, it was like, like I said, out of mind, out of body experience. And so her program, and I just said, I just kept praying about it. Her program was to get me in remission within 3 to 4 months so that I would have enough time to continue treatment so that by the end of the year, I could start my stem cell transplant and be on the road to recovery by January 1st. Well, what ended up happening was the fact that she worked her side of the program extremely, extremely well. And what ended up happening is we were in remission by like October 19th. Thank God. It was a very short time. So from July to October, we made it to remission. But then I was dealing with my insurance company at the time, which at the time it was a lot of chaotic nonsense because they were only going to approve the fact that we'll approve your transplant, but we wouldn't approve your aftercare. We'd approve this, but we won't approve this drug. I mean, it was just nuts. And so I spent like most of October, November, and December saying to myself, if I can't get this done, because everybody that's listening to this, to get a stem cell transplant now in today's world, the average cost is about $500,000. I mean, that's just straight up $500,000. In my particular case, with all of the circumstances that I went through, and of course I had to go back because I had engraftment syndrome, which I'll talk about here in just a minute, it was closer to $2 million, for the stay that I had in the hospital. And so what ended up transpiring is I fought with my insurance company, and then I said to myself, I said, enough's enough. I said, let me go to the VA hospital and see if I can get them to facilitate helping me out. And what ended up happening is I went to the oncologist department there in the VA. They ran all the labs and tests, verified that I had my multiple myeloma. And then eventually one of the doctors said, you know what, Greg, since we don't have the ability to give you a stem cell transplant here in San Antonio at the VA hospital, we will refer you out. And if we refer you out, we will pay for all of the costs, 100%, including all of your post care. And so I was like, thank you, God, for that whole situation. And so after all of that transpired, like I said, we were targeting trying to get my transplant done by December. With everything that happened with the insurance, it delayed it. And what ended up happening since we got referred out, instead of us having to go out of state to get the transplant, I was able to get the transplant done here by a hospital that was very close to the VA. And it worked out in our favor very, very well. So we were blessed based on everything that transpired and worked out. There are so many moments through the period of my diagnosis, treatment, where I just said to myself, the power of me healing is beyond me. I knew it was all in God's hands. But some of the things that were happening were miracles. And I mean, literally miracles, because, I'll give you one significant event. One significant event that happened was the fact that when I got my second biopsy in October, when, we said, basically said we were in remission, at that point in time, there were no cancer cells detected in my body. And so we went from October, November, December, January. I had another biopsy. We had an MRD, which is a minimal residual disease report, where they, use a mass spectrometer and they look at your blood very, very closely. Same thing. Came back again on the second round. No cancer cells detected. So I went into my transplant with no cancer cells in my body. The chemo worked. The first treatment that was recommended, the regimen worked. I had no real major, well, I mean, outside of the standard side effects, but I kind of went through it, I won't say in a breeze, but it was challenging. I had some ups and downs, but for the most part, my body responded exceptionally well. And knock on wood, where we're at today, post-transplant, because I had a transplant on February the 9th. Okay. So I went from February the 9th to basically February 21st. I was released from the hospital, feeling pretty good, because I was basically doing dance videos and everything else while I was in the hospital. I got home. I was only home for 14 hours. And what ended up transpiring is I spiked a fever, get rushed back to the emergency room. They're running all these tests, trying to figure out what's going on, this, that, and the other, so forth and so on. And long story short, by the time we got through another 8 days of me being in the hospital, the doctor came in and said, the only thing we can figure this out to be is engraftment syndrome. And I looked at him and I said, okay, so what explain to me exactly what is that? Because my wife and I, we spent a lot of time doing research, but it was like certain things we just didn't understand. He says, well, that's where your stem cells are basically implanting back into the bone marrow. And in this particular case, what is occurring is that your body is working on overdrive in order to implant everything back in. So as we went back and looked at my laboratory work, my blood work, each and every day that they were taking it, there were like 300, 400, 500% increase in my red blood cell count coming up, white blood cell coming up, the platelet count coming up. I mean, all these things were just like raging. And so as everybody knows, when you get a fever, that's based on the fact of your body trying to fight off infections or fight off whatever it is. But I didn't have any type of bacterial infection going on at the time. I had no viral infection going on at the time. So the only thing they could truly diagnose it to be was the engraftment syndrome, based on the fact that my body was like, hey, what are you trying to do to me, in order to recover? And like I said, another blessing, because of the simple fact that, my body overall has responded extremely, extremely well. And it's solely not based on the doctors, definitely based on the man above, because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for his blessings.
Wow. Woo! Okay. What a story. I mean, I'm just captivated with your story. And thank you for sharing. And it's so good that you're here. And it's so wonderful to hear that, everything went well. Your body took that chemo. You made it to stem cell, like to the transplant. And now you're going to be going for the biopsy with some results. So all good news. We want to keep it good news. Oh, Gabe's back. What's up, Gabe? Lynn says God is good. And
absolutely.
Yes. Odell, thank you for being here and supporting. Gregory, thank you for hanging out and checking us out. So, it's really nice that you have so much support, because support is important. I mean, you can't get anywhere without that support from your friends and family. Jonathan, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. This is important. We appreciate you supporting this show. And, you know, the work that we do here when we highlight
Mhm,
stories like
mhm,
this, and really
mhm,
the importance. And you touched on the financial
mhm,
burden that comes with
mhm.
a diagnosis,
Right.
treatment, um, medications, just
Mhm.
all kind fighting the insurance companies.
Yeah.
You were blessed that you had the VA. I've heard of that about the VA and how they
Mhm,
will
mhm.
pay towards a local hospital.
Right.
So I think that that's one like huge benefit.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
powerful
yeah.
story.
Oh, yeah,
Sylvester, thank you. We saw your comment. So thanks for hanging out. He's such
yeah.
a true champion. I'm honored to have him and hear this. Like jaw dropping, like the way you fight and the way that you have to keep going. I mean, you cannot give up. You have to,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, stay positive, right?
yeah,
Like you
yeah.
have to kind of have that faith and keep going. So,
Right.
Alex, thank you for hanging out, my dear. I appreciate you too. I saw you here earlier.
You know, the sincerity of what you said earlier about support, and I'm gonna be just as real and as honest as I possibly can on this because it touched me to the core. Okay. We put out a news press back in like July, and basically the overwhelming response as to what is going on with Greg came from across the globe. I'm talking about literally because anybody that follows us on IG, they know we got several hundreds of thousands of followers out there, and all the different people we've interviewed. We've interviewed people from literally all the world. So what ended up transpiring is my phone was blowing up, my wife's phone was blowing up. She looked at me and she says, I didn't even realize you had this many people that you had touched, but so many people, the love,
Mhm.
the encouragement. I mean, it was overwhelming. And so one of the things that I thought about at the time, at the lowest point through my treatment, was how can I relate back to the community? How can I insinuate and ensure that they understand what I'm going through and try to provide the inspiration to be as positive and as open and as transparent as possible. So I made the decision, and a lot of people are like, this was nuts. Why would you want to do this? I made the decision, and I talked to my wife about this. I made the decision to basically share my story every single time that we had a significant event. And my significant events were anytime I was going to treatment, I was letting the world know that this is what's going on in my life. This is how I'm feeling. These are the images that are happening, and these are all the things that are going into the fact of me trying to fight this disease and battle it through the course of getting myself back to what I consider to be a sense of normalcy. And again, I didn't think that it was going to amount to anything, but it was very therapeutic for me,
Yeah.
completely overwhelming, and the comments and the camaraderie and the touching aspect. People write me today that I have no idea who they are, where they're from. I see a picture and they say, I look forward to your post every single time they come out because you inspire me. And I tell you, that makes me cry every single time I read a post like that. I mean, it's almost
Oh,
unbelievable, unbelievable.
well, I mean, it's good, like that you're able to do that, right? A lot of people
Hmm.
can't share publicly, like I said at the
Right.
beginning, but you're doing it and you're receiving all this support and all this
Hmm.
love.
Hmm.
And so, if you want to support and show some love, go over to that GoFundMe because we just heard how expensive treatment is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, please support, but being kind. If you can't support financially, but being kind,
Hmm.
being compassionate, um, you know, what you're going through, you make it sound easy. And that sounds terrible to say because you say it with such
Conviction.
strength.
Right. Right.
Yeah, with
Right.
strength and like and things just really worked out, and we want them to continue to work out, and we want you to be like officially cancer free where you don't have
Yeah.
to like
Yeah.
now it's just a story, right? And
Hmm. Hmm.
it's not really part of the current day-to-day like
Hmm.
um thought processes, right, that
Right.
consume you, right?
Right.
So Whew, I don't know, but I mean,
Well,
you're a leader, and that's what a leader's being about, is
yeah,
really
yeah,
like setting that example, and you've taken that and just like created and making an impact along the way. And
right,
I
right.
mean, that's so important. There's so many people that do this alone and in
Hmm.
private, and
Hmm.
they don't have that strength that you have, that inner strength, right? Like
Yeah.
that guided strength.
Hmm. Hmm.
So to be able to continue and share.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that comes from, my upbringing, kind of my childhood. My brother and I, we always kid around as to how my dad brought us up, because,
Mm-hmm.
the challenge was always, are you built for this? And people have heard me say that before. And it's such a powerful statement when you say, are you built for this? I mean, when people are put in situations, particularly when, as I've shared with people in some of my dialogue through the blog and through my post out there on Facebook, it's like once you hit the bottom, a lot of people, like you said, you can either give up and basically just say it's all over, or you can ask yourself that question: are you built for this? And the only thing you can do when you're at the bottom is, guess what? Go up. I mean, you just got to figure out a way to get yourself back onto the horse, check back into life, and figure out how to move forward in a very positive manner. And I'll tell you, throughout my entire career, being, I would consider myself being a smart guy. People say, yeah, I'm intelligent, this, that, or other, but whatever adjective they want to use. But when I worked in the DOE markets, when I worked in the environmental remediation cleanup, there was a lot of situations that I was faced with that didn't like diversity. And so, I started dealing with things not only as a child, through high school, through my professional career, so forth and so on. But you figure out ways mentally to be tough. You figure out ways to mentally persevere and evolve. And, sometimes you just can't be kicked. So you can only be kicked so many times before you say, you know what, I need to push back. And when you push back, you got to push back, like you said, with conviction, with that perseverance, with that resiliency, those type
Yeah.
of things that are going to allow for you to feel like you can look at yourself in the mirror and basically say, I'm doing what I have to do to fulfill my life's destiny in a way that you can be honored, because a lot of people want to leave their legacy, and, they don't know how to do that, and I can always say, for me, live my life to the fullest. I mean, at least at this point, since I've gone through battling cancer and fighting cancer and dealing with all the things that I had to do, I am at a most humbling point right now, because the first 51 years of my life, I did all the craziness. And now I'm refined. I am focused. I am more attentive to what is the priority for me to be able to move forward. And the number one thing for me, a lot of people say, well, Greg, what is that? Leave the past in the past and only look forward, because the things that I'm getting ready to do for Greg 2.0, another mic dropper, is going to be phenomenal.
Ah, wow. I'm so
Going to be
excited.
phenomenal.
I get to catch this coming up and be part of, like, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that is fantastic. I mean, you really do. Mindset is just such a key thing,
Right.
really. But I know a lot of it has to do with external factors,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much that, and it's such a complex thing, right? Like there
Right.
is no just do this and this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because everything is so individual to everyone's situation.
Right.
So you have to find what works for you and how you're going to get through it and what keeps you moving and what continues to give you hope. I don't know how you feel
Mm-hmm.
about the word hope, but what continues to keep moving forward and not give up.
Well, hope is
So
hope is extremely, extremely important, because it provides the philosophical means for you to be able to look at things in a positive light. And when you start to look at things in a positive light, that's really what hope is all about. I mean, for me, when I was touched and stricken by the whole cancer thing, I had a moment through the whole treatment where one night I got up and I literally sat on the side of my bed and I cried for about an hour, because I was just like, somebody, please, Jesus, please help me, touch me. I mean, whatever I needed, I was needing that at that moment in time. And, behold, here I am today, because, at the time of speaking with the higher power and rekindling my faith and all these other things that I needed to do to make myself whole again, you know, it was all about hope. It was all about inspiring. It was all about giving back. It was all about connecting. It was all about spreading the love, because at the end of the day, my past, me being the person that I was, as people would say, he's a pain in my, ASS, or, this, that, or the other, because I was always trying to save people's projects. It was just overbearing. It was stressful. It was just too much to take in. I mean, I sacrificed a lot of my life back then, and my kids, to be able to do that. Did I make a lot of money? Well, yeah. I mean, but money's not everything. It didn't fulfill me the way that I wanted to be fulfilled. And now I am on that path, of having the education, having the experience, having the traumatic things happen in your life, and be able to move forward in a very, very positive manner. And I'll tell you, when I talk about nourishment to the soul, I'm the definition of nourishment to the soul, because at the end of the day, when you come talk to me, you're going to get nothing but right down the middle of the fairway. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
I know. And that's important, because like, that's just life. Like, life is not, and that's why kind of my show is about let your mayhem be known. And it's really about like uncovering all that and just saying, look, we're all human. We've got this stuff going on. We all need some sort of kind of help. Right. We all can use a hand, some support, some compassion, some kindness.
That's right.
Cut us a break. While we cut to the chase.
Bingo.
Right. But we're all in this together. Like, there is no time to be like, separating and opposing and just making things harder for everyone. So Monica, says she's so proud of you. So I wanted to pull that to encourage you. She had said that a little bit earlier, but it's just so nice. Anthony, I saw your comment. I don't know if you're still here, but thank you, my friend, for hanging out and listening to his story. He is a kidney transplant recipient, and he has his own show. I don't know if you know Anthony, another podcaster. Similar stories, right? Telling his stories with kidney and dialysis and just, so it's just really important. He was a guest, and it just, for me, these stories of what you have to go through, but you find a way to get through them. You continue to move forward, and now look what you're doing and how you're moving lives. You're extending, and you've taken what you've been handed to, make it maybe easier for someone else, or a little bit more digestible for someone else. So, now he's a kidney coach. Have you ever heard of this? Like how about a multiple myeloma coach?
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, right? Because you can really help those that have now are going through this right now, are going to follow this path. And yours has been intense, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, everything that you're hitting on and chiming on, for a lot of people that know me, I, in my prior life, and even now, I have such a big heart. I love giving back. I love putting others before me. And of course, now I've had to reel that back in a little bit. But, before my stem cell transplant, I did a podcast with LLS, regarding some of the things that, we had been chatting about. And of course, through my Cut to the Chase Foundation, we've partnered up with the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute through their Promise study to basically bring forth more awareness, particularly in a lot of these different communities where things have kind of been not really publicized about multiple myeloma, to be able to try to get people to get the test done, because you can catch multiple myeloma at a much earlier stage and not have to go through all the traumatic things that I had to go through and live a very long, prosperous life. But if you allow for it to get to a point to where it's eating away at your bone marrow, starting to attack the calcium in your bones, starting to leave such a bad protein in your body, you're in trouble. And that's what happened to me. I was in trouble. and there was nothing I could do about it. You couldn't just go pop a pill and say, hey, this will take care of it. I had to go through the full blown regimen of dealing with all of the stuff to get this, as I say, toxin or disease out of my body.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the fight, still continues. I mean, there's still stuff coming up ahead that you have to deal with and that you're going to have to manage. And hopefully you've got that support system, and, you know, you've got, you know, the services of the VA, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. You know, just amazing organization. So I mentioned April 22nd, we're part of the philanthropic competition, raising money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society that really provides research, trying to find obviously a cure, really helping with medications, finding medications that help even other types of cancers, not just blood cancers. So really, like, they're really providing phenomenal work and research out there. And who knows, maybe you'll be a candidate for Man and Woman of the Year next year, and we'll be like a part of your philanthropic team raising money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, I'll be honest with you. You know, I've been blessed, you know, not only for the fact of working with the Lymphoma Leukemia Society, but also some of the other ones that are out there, you know, Pan Foundation and a couple other ones. But to be real, you know, what really kind of happened, and a lot of people are unaware of you know, kind of the circumstances, is the fact that, you know, the LLS and the Pan Foundation, I mean, they provide such a significant uplift and contribution to the patient. And what I mean by that is discounts on drugs, you know, grants and other various things that they're able to help out with, provided you're, you know, you fit the bill and you get in early enough before they run out of funding. I mean, to me and for my wife, it was pretty much a uplifting type of circumstance to be able to receive some of those benefits and to go through some of their educational extremities, because, you know, not only them, you look at like Health Tree, you look at the International Multiple Myeloma Research over in the UK. I mean, these people are all doing great things to kind of help out with multiple myeloma. And I know they've done a lot of great things for me, because in a lot of cases, my wife right now is probably, I won't say she's got her PhD, but she challenges the hell out of these doctors when we go into these appointments. And they're like, wait a minute now. I mean, hold on, time out.
She did her homework before showing up in there. I love it.
And it's so funny and it's so comical because, you know, we became students because, like I said, you know, all these different terminologies and various things that happened earlier on, we had to prepare ourselves. In order to prepare ourselves to be successful, you know, we had to do some things that, you know, most people would say are unorthodox. You know, you figure I'm 50, you know, my wife is, you know, in her late 40s. And the fact that we're back, like we're going to college, we're like college students trying to like, well, what does that term mean? What is this? What is that? Because we needed to ensure that we were on the right path. And I'll tell you, I went through, I mean, even though I was sick and just very ill, I had second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. I mean, I had so many different opinions that they were starting to conflict each other because of the simple fact that I didn't want to believe doctor number one only, because I knew that there were so many treatments out there for multiple myeloma. Multiple myeloma is one of the most expensive cancers out there. A lot of people don't realize that, but it's one of the most expensive cancers out there. As being a blood cancer, they can't go in and cut it out. You got to go through a transfusion or something to that extremity. And it's very hard. Each and every patient has a different symptom or side effect or approach to how they deal with all the different things with multiple myeloma. And to be honest with you, I mean, it's a real bitch.
Wow.
It's a beast.
Yeah. Well, just quickly, just to share, my uncle had leukemia and he passed away from leukemia. And I'm not I don't know the details between the different types of blood cancers. But you know, you have to do a little bit of research, and being part of the team, you know, I've been trying to do a little bit. So it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
It's a lot, so that was how I'm a little bit related to that, in the sense of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and that's why I'm like passionate about being part of this and really talking about this. But I didn't really realize, like what you just said about it's the most expensive.
Oh, absolutely.
And I didn't even think of blood cancers, right? You're right. They can't go in and cut it out like a tumor. So I'm like, ooh, mic drops.
One of the things I just want to kind of clarify, I mean, you know, and this is where it gets really difficult, particularly when you deal with a multiple myeloma versus a lymphoma. Lymphoma, you don't have a choice. You have to get a donor because of the circumstances of the disease and how it has really destroyed your immune system. Now, with multiple myeloma, depending upon if you're in a situation to where you're II or IgA or IgG or one of these ones that is not quite severe. I mean, it's severe, but it's not quite as severe. You can go through what they call an auto stem cell transplant, is where they take your own stem cells out of your body and they clean them up. And then at the time of your stem cell transplant, they reintroduce them back into your body, as a cleaned up stem cell, so that they will regrow, regenerate, so forth and so on. But if you've got lymphoma, you have to go through an allo transplant. You have to have a donor. And that's where it gets very, very complicated, because when you have to have a donor, a lot of times, even though the donor may match, you could have what they call engraftment disease, is where your body won't accept, the transplant. It's just like putting in a heart or putting in a lung from somebody else. Your body may not, react to it very well. And so there's more complications when you have lymphoma versus multiple myeloma. And certainly they're both blood cancers, but one is definitely a little bit more severe than the other. And, all of these things are, like I said, they're just a beast on anyone that's having to deal or live through such a kind of an experience like that.
Yes. Well, our hour's up and I want to be respectful of your time. I know we're already past the hour, so people should connect with you through. How can people connect with you? Final social medias, Cut to the Chase podcast. You have to listen, follow, and then the GoFundMe. I can't, really expensive supporting you, Gregory. That's what this episode's for, is to really get you some more individuals to hear your story and support you and continue to, get the word out, right?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, you hit on all the chimes. I mean, typically if people go put in my name, Gregory O. Proctor, I mean, boom, I've got enough stuff out there on the internet where you'll certainly find me. I mean, between LinkedIn, Facebook, IG, I mean, I'm out there. I'm not one that at this point, I used to be a person that didn't like social media very much, but now that all of the stuff that has happened to me, plus the success of Cut to the Chase, there is no hiding behind.
Okay, so that's
or the internet.
So find you, get a hold of you, support you, listen to your podcast, download those episodes. Powerful stories, lots more coming from you. This is just the beginning. This is just another new beginning. I like what they said in the chat about rebirth. I love that. Let me pull that up.
Yeah, rebirth is a term that they use primarily when you go through a stem cell transplant. And I don't mind staying on a little bit longer just to kind of chat a little bit about some of these things. But rebirth is basically, it's like going through a wormhole. It's like space travel almost. What ends up happening is your body goes through a complete regeneration of all of your cells, particularly your stem cells. And that's why they kind of call it a rebirth, because what you end up going through is something that it's almost like having an ongoing convulsion, because, some of the things that I experienced was my skin completely broke out like I was a teenager again, and I was like, wait a minute, what's going on, and then my muscles and aches and pains and other various things, like really learning how to walk again and learning how to have balance and all these different variations of things, because as you at least for me, I mean, it's different for everybody, but as you go through, your cells regenerating, it's like everything is trying to come back online. It's trying to reboot itself. And if you think about that, it's just like a baby. A baby comes out through, birth, and, it's trying to learn and figure out and so forth and so on. And so a lot of the things that I end up having to endure was just really kind of, as I call it, limitations. These were all things that were stricken from the fact of, this is what I was doing before, the stem cell transplant. And then basically after the stem cell transplant, I was living in a box. I'm still living in a box right now because I'm having to be isolated. But for the most part, waiting for my immune system to come back online, waiting to be able to get re-immunized or go through my vaccines and get re-immunized again. I mean, these are all things that are just unexpected when you're 51 years old. But when you deal with multiple myeloma and you have a stem cell transplant, this is just a part of the journey and the process that you have to go through. And there's really no other way around it.
Whew. Wow. Wow. Rosemary says, thank you for sharing your story. Blessings. I know. I'm blown away. Fantastic. I mean, it's serious. It's deep, but it needs to be talked about. And a lot of people want to scroll on by, and I get that, you know. But then there's people out there that really want to hear this message, need to hear this message,
Right.
are going to go through it. It seems like different episodes that I have where we talk about different things, you have different people come through because it affects them, and it's finally like, okay, they're talking about this. Okay,
right.
You know, so that starts to create a sense of comfort and a sense of safety. Like, it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to open up,
Right.
you know, because it's affecting so many other people. So,
well, the thing is with multiple myeloma, and I'll be brief in this explanation. When I first got diagnosed and I went to do all the research, they were like, hey, this is a disease that only hits people that are 65, 70 years of age. Well, statistically, you know, what's happening in the US right now, because, you know, I'm going to share this with people and people are going to be like, oh my God, Greg dropped another mic dropper. There are more cases that are going on in the US that are under the age of 65. I'm talking about people that are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s that are getting diagnosed with this. And so with all of this pretensive notion of these things going on, you know, a question comes to mind, like, how is this happening? You know, and people are like, well, it's the environment. And so the more I did research on this, I began to realize it's like, hey, we've dealt with so much toxicity in our environment, you know, whether it's your mouthwash, your toothpaste, the exhaust that you breathe, whether or not you smelt the paint can or whatever the case may be, you know, you just never really know what caused the problem for individuals to contract multiple myeloma. And so in my life, what I had to do is everything had to go back to what I consider to be a natural attenuation. My wife is being from Peru. She loves eating naturally. She doesn't like artificial processed type food, fried foods, or anything like that. So that became, yeah, exactly. So that became pretty much my life, you know, before the stem cell transplant, because it was like, can't have sugar, can't have this, can't have that. I mean, all these different things impact it. And now that I'm on the other side and I realize how important and how significant it is, since I don't know how I contracted multiple myeloma, if it was something in my environment, if it was a Lysol can that was sprayed, I don't know. But, you know, all these different things right now, we've pretty much stripped those things out of our environment, and we try to live a very clean, wholesome life, knowing that we know what's being put into our system so that, you know, we don't end up in a situation like this again. Because, you know, just because multiple myeloma is no longer in my body and I'm in remission, it doesn't mean that the cancer can't come back, because in a lot of cases, what a lot of people don't realize is multiple myeloma, being one of the most expensive cancers, is what they call an incurable disease. There is no cure. So even though, like I said, I'm in remission, they haven't found any cancer cells, but at any point in time, you know, knock on wood, people have gone back, you know, 6 years down the road, 4 years down the road, 3 years down the road. But you hear people that have gone 25, 30, 40 years after they've had their stem cell transplant and they've been blessed. I'm banking on that myself because of all the things we've done and all the things we've changed in our daily lives. But, you know, you just never know. You just never know.
Wow. Okay. So you just said something that kind of knocked the wind right out of me. But this goes to something that a guest last week said the same thing. And we were talking about Parkinson's.
Right.
And she says that more and more now younger people are being diagnosed with Parkinson's, and they don't understand like what's causing it, why.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not the first time I've heard that. And that's terrifying, because it's right. And we all hear now plastics are in our blood. I mean,
that's right. That's right.
I'm reading it. I've tried to cut out as much plastics, plastic cups, plastic plates, bowls, anything that's plastic. It's like ceramic, you know, wood, metal, aluminum. But you know, I don't know, even then, but still, at least the plastics in our blood now that they've actually like, whew,
yeah.
terrifying.
I've got a good friend. She's a part of my medical staff, Dr. Pat. You can find her on LinkedIn as well.
Dr.
She is a huge advocate for literally everything that can hurt you or kill you in our environment. And she talks about that all the time on LinkedIn. She's got a book out that's called, Why Are You um Fat, Sick, and Tired or something. I don't remember the title exactly, but I'll tell you, if you read that book, it will scare the hell out of you because it deals with all of the things that I just talked about. And you begin to question. You go look at your toothpaste and you're like, what are all these long words that you can't pronounce, chemicals that they're put into the toothpaste? And you say to yourself, should I be putting this into my body? And basically, to be clear, these are things you probably shouldn't be putting into your body. But we've been doing it because it's like what everybody else
We've
does
been
in the
told
world.
to. We've been
Exactly.
conditioned to put
Exactly.
this cream on. What's on that
Exactly.
cream? The
That's right.
makeup or
That's right.
clothes made out
That's
of
right.
plastic,
That's
right?
right. Exactly.
Like people don't believe,
Exactly.
yeah, there's plastic in our clothes
Yeah.
and our skin absorbs that.
Yep.
It's just like,
Yeah.
you could do anything and then just something gets on you. You could be working on some sort of like chemicals, even the
Right.
stuff we used to
Right.
clean.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many toxins out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
And so
and you just don't know how it's going to affect you and how
right.
that's going to like trigger something like this, right? Like,
Exactly. So one of the things like going through the transplant, you go through all this educational process, and then right before your transplant, they give you a 5-inch thick binder that tells you these are all the things you can do. These are all the things you can't do. And there's more things you can't do after the transplant than what you can do. And I'll tell you, when you go through and you read that, it's like I said, it's an eye-opening experience. I mean, there's so much that I've learned. I mean, cancer, like I said, cancer is a beast. I called it a bitch earlier, but certainly it's a beast. But I'll tell you, out of everything that has ever occurred to me in life, and I've lost money, I've been in financial distraught through my businesses and other various things that have happened in the past, and I picked myself back up. But long story short, cancer has humbled me. It has humbled me in life, and I'll be very, very clear with anybody that says, "How could you say that?" And I'll say, "Well, when you have an opportunity to have a life-changing experience and you live through it, literally go to hell and back. I mean, there's nothing else you can say, but you're humbled, and
no.
that's where I am right now. I'm living, that humble life in a perspective that like I said, I want to be able to give back, but I also want to be in a position to where I'm fulfilled wholeheartedly. I never want to feel that sense of emptiness. And I know by what I'm doing, my testimony and all the things that I'm doing out there with my podcasts and other companies, that is a part of what brings that fulfillment back to me.
Is your purpose changing?
It has changed. It has changed because
Sounds like
before things, kind of got as bad as what they did with the whole cancer, it was all about work, be successful, funding, I mean, it was all about, trying to live in a manner that probably I would never ever achieve, you know. And a lot of people say, well, maybe that was a wake up call for you. And you know, maybe it was, but I've been through so many wake up calls in my life
right.
between parents dying and, like I said, having some financial things that happen, going through multiple divorces, and all these different crazy things that people go, well, these things, they can either make you weaker, they can make you stronger. For me, they made me stronger because I had to go through those type of gates in my life to be where I am today and to have the knowledge that I have. And I just think moving forward in life, there's so much more to give and so much more to enjoy when you look at things in a perspective of being not necessarily being relatable, but being open and being
Gratitude.
and gratitude. There you go.
Yeah, being
Gratitude.
grateful,
That's right.
for
That's right.
what you got and not
That's right.
just wanting more,
That's
expecting
correct.
more,
That's
demanding
correct.
more.
Bingo.
Oof.
Bingo.
All right. Superman question. I forgot to go back to the comment why I called you Superman. So,
yeah, she used to say to me,
Clark Kent was present.
yeah, because I always used to be this guy that was, and most people used to call me, I mean, and it's funny because it would be like, Greg, you're always dressed, some people used to say, you look like Tiger Woods when you got on your sports attire, and then you look like Poindexter when you got on your suit and tie. And so with Jackie, every time that, we would get together, she'd be like, always clean cut, always. She's like, okay, Clark Kent. And then she would ask me to do something, and she would be like, oh my God, how did you guys get all of that stuff done? You're like Superman.
Okay. All right. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. So just to read the comment out loud, it says, when I met Gregory, his faith was being tested.
Mm-hmm.
Clark Kent was present at the time.
Yep.
We spent some time together, and he quickly adjusted his mindset to overcome. He is one of the strongest people that I know, and I'm proud to call him a friend. So
Yep.
I love that. All right. Wow. You've just brought so much to this conversation, Gregory. It's been so fun. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing and opening up and just being a warrior, like a public warrior, like, just putting it out there and helping others along the way while you can, and just like making the best out of a really tough situation. But look at you, you're on the good side, and we want to keep it that way and send you so many healthy and staying healthy and continuing, on that path of health and wellness. And I think it's oftentimes we want to just kind of pretend like that doesn't affect us, right? The external factors, but it'll catch up with you eventually. I mean, something will get you, I guess, is really what it's about. I mean, we all end up with something, right? It catches up with us, time and life. And, we all got those younger years of, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that. How did I make it out alive through that? Right. But then something like this hits you, and it really puts life into perspective.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm truly blessed, and for me to close out, just to kind of let everybody know where I am, in my overall treatment and diagnosis at this point. So, I'm basically 61 days post my SET, thank God for that. My body's getting stronger every day. I'm walking 2.5 miles per day. I'm starting to re-engage with some of my day-to-day activities. Coming up, I have a PET scan coming up in about a week and a half. I have another biopsy coming up in about a week and a half. Looking forward for those things to come back with no cancer cells being in my body. At that point in time, I'll be able to revaccinate and start to get all of my vaccines again, including all my childhood vaccines. I mean, the list of vaccines that I have to go back and get is crazy. Absolutely crazy.
No, I know a little bit. It's a lot of vaccines out there.
So I've got to go back and get all of that stuff done. And then hopefully, sometime in May, maybe June timeframe, I can start to reacclimate myself back into the world. Because like I said, kind of living in isolation right now and start to live a normal life again. But there's a lot of great things coming. I mean, I've shared some tidbits of things with you already, but but man, there's
I mean, the work doesn't stop. The work's not stopping, that's for sure.
That's right. Absolutely.
All right. Kenny, I see you here, sir. Thank you for hanging out. Are you drinking from? Okay, look, this is a metal container. It is metal. I don't buy single-use plastic. I do drink lots of water. And it came from, I was a bridesmaid, so it's a wedding. So it was a gift, okay, Kenny? But really, I try, good old metal can there with my water. So, all right. Gregory, thank you so much. It's been an honor, your story, sharing this time with me, spending, all these nuggets and dropping all these, future upcoming sneak peeks that you're sharing on what you're up to. So it's really great. And I wish you the best.
Thank you very much. And I wouldn't be myself if I didn't say this. Now you've got to come on my podcast.
Oh, okay. Of course. Yeah, we'll definitely have a good old conversation, and I'll do a lot more of the talking this time, right? Because I'm the guest. All right. I guess we're going to go ahead and say a good night to everyone and say thank you for everyone being here. Please follow Gregory, reach out, cut to the chase, cut with a K, 2 with the number 2, the with a THA.
Yep.
Chase podcast, and that's trademark. So you can find him anywhere. He's all over. Just Google that. All right, we're going to say goodnight and we're going to give
Thanks
a
a lot,
little
dude.
wave. All
Take
right,
care.
thanks. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.